Hi, I'm Al Holman, and I've been a freelancer now for several years, and I've used Upwork and Fiverr and a couple of the other platforms I've looked at. And over the time, I've noticed that sometimes when you look at someone's listing, there's a problem in how it's written. And over the time, I've realized that maybe no one's telling folks that these are mistakes that they're making. So, in the spirit of trying to help other folks, I'm going to look at a listing today from Upwork. And we're going to go through the listing and find where I find there's some strong things in the listing and some problems. So, originally, you'll see here, this is the listing as it ran through my feed. The one we're looking at is here in the middle, entry level audio editing plus typing assistant, 2 freelancers needed. So let's go and go over to the actual page of the listing. Now, the first thing that I look at when I go through, you'll see this highlighted area with a yellow rectangle, and that's the connects. Within the Upwork system, you have to put in a chit. It's called a connect in Upwork. Basically, they're 15 cents. And that's just so that you don't dilute everything and apply for everything. So you've got some skin in the game. With this one, it's 10 connects. It's a buck 50. It's the way to think about it. Do I want to spend a buck 50 on this activity? For this one, 10 connects is not a high price. So I think that's a fair way to start out. Okay, now that we've looked at the connects, let's go ahead and look at the top. Because usually you'll get one of two things, and this is a good example of where you get more of a list format that people give you. I'm sure I'll review something here in the near future that'll have more of a paragraph at the top, but this is the list version. I kind of like these personally a little better. Starts out with they need to hire 2 freelancers. The job posting is entry level audio editing plus typing assistant. 2 freelancers needed. Now, it's 2 freelancers as in one audio editor and one typing assistant, or 2 people to do both audio editing and typing assistant. A little confusing, but let's read further and see if that gets cleared up as we go through. Project ongoing, that's nice. The experience level, they're calling entry level. Budget seeking freelancer with the lowest rate. Okay. What does that tell me as a freelancer? This guy doesn't want to pay money. And maybe if I'm very talented, or I've got a long resume, or this guy might not be worth my time. Now, if I'm new and I need to get some wins up on the board so that the system sees you and you start to get awarded badges and you get better ratings as things go on, that's a little bit different. So that's always something to look at. That budget, and then skills, must know how to type well. Okay. So in the first time they list stuff, they list typing is very important. And in the skills required, it doesn't say video editing. So that's a little confusing. So what we're going to do now is let's look at the project summary, which is what's below. We are hiring 2 reliable entry-level freelancers to assist in adding approximately 80 royalty-free sound effects into 4 hours of existing MP4 audio. The audio is contained within 2 MP4 files, making the workflow simple and manageable. Okay, let's look at the first of this. As the freelancer, you, the client that's written this out, what I'm thinking of as I'm the freelancer is, okay, 80 for 4 hours. Okay, so we got 20 sound effects for each hour. I got to go fishing for those, even if I've got easy access and there is on the internet for royalty-free stuff. It's in a lot of different places. So I'm going to have to click on 2 or 3, figure in the sense of a time frame, I need to look at each one of those 80 is probably about 5 minutes just to find the clip, or say you're fast, maybe you're 3 minutes. But then you're going to have to download and then you're going to have to edit. So I'm thinking, 5 to 8 minutes worth of time times 80. That's more than just the 4 hours of listening. Remember, to accomplish this task as a freelancer, I see 80 times, say, 5 minutes times the 4 hours, because I got to listen through as I go. So there'll be the 4 hours of listening and then the time to get those clips. So that's quite a bit of time. And the next thing that we find on this listing is the sound editor will listen through the 4 hours of the pre-existing audio independently. No assistance from owner. It's interesting that they have this thing about no assistance from owner. What would the owner do while you were trying to listen to it? Just saying. Determine where sound effects should be placed on the content and context of the audio. Search for relevant, appropriate sound effects, i.e., if the narrative mentions a campfire, the editor should find a campfire sound effect. Makes perfect sense. Seems like a good instruction. Insert the sound effect seamlessly and professionally into the MP4 audio. So in other words, you're going to lay down a second track side by side to what the existing audio is and fade it in and fade it out, or bring it in, or however you want to bring it in and out. So that makes sense. This role requires good judgment, creativity, and the ability to make appropriate audio choices without constant directions. Well, we were supposed to work independently, so that kind of makes sense. In a sense of these particular directions, these are pretty clear. They, for the most part, make sense. And it's not a bad way to list it out. There's not a lot of extra crap here. Sometimes you get people that want to tell you, they want to use 12 words to describe a vibe. Listing that sounds more like it came out of a self-help book than directions or a job listing. But that's other listings, and we'll probably run into one of those as we review things. So let's move on to the document requirement. Here we have the highlighted section for the documentation requirement. For every sound effect used, the freelancer must create a log documenting exact name of the sound effect, and they sometimes have unusual names and sometimes it's just numbers. Direct URL link where the effect was downloaded from. This helps future editors easily replace or modify effects as needed. All right, so let's look at the additional responsibilities. Document review and live typing. Doesn't sound like audio editing, but let's go ahead. Separate from the audio work. Okay, so this is a different gig. Freelancers will also assist with document editing. A video editor and a document editor can be the same people, but not always. And you might not find the same person with the same skill level from video editing to word editing. Interesting. Let's go on. Read document aloud over the phone with the client. Okay, so we've got some time consumption going on here if you're reading through this, because it's just not like somebody's reading it to you. Listen to the client's dictated edits and type changes immediately and accurately. So this is the old taking dictation deal. This used to be very much a separate job. When I was getting into the workforce in the early 80s, boy, sometimes you needed somebody to take dictation, and they got paid pretty well, and usually they did their own shorthand too. So that's interesting. It's also interesting that someone would do this in the age of where you can speak into an audio device and have it transcribed on a lot of different platforms. Interesting that they would look at that and have this done. Phone sessions, average phone sessions, more than one. Okay, so the time commitment here is telling us that there's more than one session, average 2 hours each. Okay, so back where we were talking, so now we were saying basically 10 hours. So here's another 4 hours as we're looking at this. Interesting. Project structure. Let's see what that says. Before I move on, there is that last line. Additional off-phone typing time may be needed depending on speed. Usually, a proficiency in typing is somewhere around 35 to 40 words a minute before you're kind of considered proficient or good at it. Nowhere in here does that person ever indicate the speed. That's interesting. Because what's speedy for you may be slower than crap for your mother-in-law. Just saying. Project structure. The project is divided into 4 milestones, one for each document. So when we go back up above and we look back up there, it's interesting. We've got the audio files. Are they considering those documents? So is the is the 4 hours, is it 4 hours of all the video a document? Are there 4 typing assignments? That's a question. Be interesting to know. Is that part of the deal here? It's not clear. This is confusing. This is where you may have great intentions, but it looks like you're trying to squeeze the person, because when we get down here on the price, we're going to look at that. So as I look at this, more typing off time, do I need to add more time to my total now? Do I need to be thinking this is a 16-hour project, 17-hour project? We'll move on. Candidate requirements, essential skills. Excellent typing skills and accuracy. Strong listening and ability to follow real-time instructions. Comfortable speaking on the phone for long periods of time. Okay. Long periods of time. What's long periods of time for you? Is that 2 hours on the phone session with typing? Does this give me an indicator that there might be more work down the road or more work for the money they're asking? It doesn't quite tell me that. Basic comfort with downloading files from the internet. Ability to work independently and make thorough audio editing decisions. Organized and detail-oriented. Okay, we started out this project by talking about the video editing, but in the sense of skills, they highlighted the typing dictation aspect before they got to the video editing. Is this 2 jobs or 1? Or is this somebody trying to get somebody to do 2 jobs in 1? It's a question. I have no answer. Somebody does. It's the client. But they didn't communicate that well. All right, as we look at training, no prior experience is required. But when we go back up further, as we move back up into essential skills, they have some. So no prior experience is needed, but you need to have excellent typing skills. So you're going to teach me type. I don't think this person meant to be confusing with this, but it is. That's one of those things that can really throw your listing off for a freelancer. We're trying to, does this make sense? Can I do the gig? How many hours? What's the pay? Can I deliver what's going on? And then you get this monkey wrench of the training. No prior experience is required. So I've never had to edit or type before. It's not a good line. Let's move on. Deliverables. Minimum of 20 sound effects must be added for each of 4 milestones. Okay. What's the deliverables on the typing? It didn't say a damn thing about the dictation part of this. It just talks about the sound effects. I'm very confused with this gig, with this job. Is it 1 or is it 2? Because I think what this person should have done, I'm almost totally sure, they should have listed this as 2 different items. They should have been an editor for the audio and for the sound effects, and it should have been this dictation thing. Even if the dictation is supposed to be, I don't know what it's for. If it's related to the audio track, is this person re-recording the audio track as it goes through? I'm very confused here, and I think that's a mistake that this particular person that's laid this out has made. And I don't think they're going to get the best talent that they want, and that the freelancers that may be the best for this particular testing will look at it, because it is really confusing in the sense of what it is. All right, so let's take a look at the last couple of sections on here. First thing we get to is price fixed. This tells you that the person doesn't want to pay more than $80 for what we think is a 16-hour task. I'm looking for freelancers with the lowest rate. So in other words, they really don't want to pay $80. They'd like to pay less for the same amount of work. Then the other thing that was odd with this, today is November 15th. This listing came in today. Deadline tomorrow. Now, what they may have made a mistake here is, within the Upwork system, usually the deadline, something like that you would have on this, would be not the deadline to submit, like this is a job closing. And I've seen where I think that I've seen other people have made that mistake. It's something you want to pay attention to when you're the client end of it, because with people like me, you're asking me now to do a 18-hour, 16-hour job in a day. So at that point, when I originally read through this, I popped out of this until I decided to go back and look at this as a learning experience for the people on the other end and for other freelancers. And then it's an ongoing project, so it's a one-time project. It's an ongoing project. It's confusing in that sense. And then one of the other things that, remember when we talked about the skills required that were listed up above, and then it goes mandatory skills, audio editing. Doesn't say anything about typing. So depending on where you are in this listing, typing is the most important thing, and then it's audio editing, but it's inconsistent. Another confusion with this particular listing. And let's go back to we're going to go to the very bottom of how these are listed. You'll see a section that says preferred qualifications. Sometimes there'll be things underneath here. I would have probably wanted to have the audio visual typing thing and that kind of thing. And then job activity. This has not had a lot of job activity. One, I think that the listing is confusing, and that's why there's not a lot. And it's only been there a day, and it's got the thing where it says it's due tomorrow with a bunch of time. So I think that's why this is low activity. But you need to pay attention to this when you're on the freelancer side, because it gives you a good, are they interviewing? Have they sent out invites? Invites sent. Tell me as the freelancer, if you're the client, that you've gone into the system and tried to look for folks or been reference folks, that tells me you have a sense of what Upwork is and how it can benefit you and the freelancer. So I look at that because I'm more inclined, unless it's like 400 people invited or 400 people interviewing. If the numbers are reasonable, that's a good indication. It's something that I watch and pay attention to. And then here, below this square, instead of doing another clip and a highlight here, you can have the client's recent history, and it's just one. So we got a newbie here. So that's something you have to pay attention to. But in the very end, and what's going on here, the listing is a problem. And I would like to help this client by telling them this really should be 2 listings. Not the one that it is, but the one that it should be. One for video editing, one for the typing, or you need to come into this particular listing and better explain how the 2 are working together to help make your project become a finished product. Because from a freelancer standpoint, if I'm the guy reading this, and I did earlier today, I got about halfway through it and walked away from it. When I decided to make this video to try to help other clients on Upwork, I started reading the rest of it, and I got even more confused in what's going on here. So I don't mean to be mean to these people. I'm trying to help them through and hopefully help other clients on Upwork. When you're listing your job, pay attention to some things. Be short and concise, but be complete in what the project is. I don't mind reading an extra sentence or 2 if it ties together maybe what may look as disparate tasks, because you want one person with a constant theme to be throughout the project. That's good, but tell me that. Because if I'm moving from one task to another, you're asking for multiple skills, which makes me more valuable as the freelancer. So I will then judge what you're offering in the same way. Be clear, be as concise as you can, be consistent through the layout. As you go from top to bottom through these listings, when you type this out, and probably look at it, post it up for 5 minutes, then come back and read it again and see if maybe you need to edit. But sometimes that happens. So, please, if you're anyone that does Upwork as far as hiring freelancers, please take these tips for the next listing you make, so freelancers like me can find the right jobs where we fit well, we provide value to you so you pay us, and to you so you want to come back to use either myself or other Upwork clients. Hey, I may do this again because I've seen a couple other error areas that probably should be brought up. So until the next time I decide to do another Upwork or Fiverr review of a listing that I find needs a little bit of help, I hope you find the work you deserve and you get paid what you need to. Bye.